Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick saying that the White House is considering certain sectors on which the United States could give Canada tariff relief, including in the auto sector. He said he expects an announcement this afternoon, and he also noted that President Trump is aiming to renegotiate the USMCA agreement, that new NAFTA, next year. Joining us right now is West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito. She chairs the Senate Republican Policy Committee. And Senator, thank you for being with us this morning. I want to get your reaction to what we are hearing right now from the Commerce Secretary. How important are the tariff acts, and how important might it be for them to be rolled back to some extent, or at least find some ways for workarounds for sectors that have been complying with the USMCA?
Well, I think the president made clear last night that he wants an even playing field. He wants fentanyl to stop flowing across both our northern and southern border. But he also made clear, I think, that the tariffs are a negotiating item for him to be able to achieve his goals, which is not just parity, but also prosperity here in the United States. So I would imagine this is going to be very fluid as we move through the next several months, particularly with Mexico and Canada. I think that we obviously import a lot of energy from Canada, and that's being treated differently already. The automotive sector, there's a lot of free flow between both borders, I think on the supply chain side, but also on the assembly side. We have a Toyota plant in West Virginia that sends our transmissions and engines to Canada, for example. So I think all of these things need to be made consideration, but I think he's got their attention, both countries, and I think he's asking them to come to the table to make this a better deal for us, or a more fair deal for us. And I think that's better for the American worker.
Senator Capito, I don't know if you heard the report we just had from Phil LeBeau, our auto reporter. He was saying that look, the big three and the auto parts suppliers are kind of between a rock and a hard place with this. There's not a lot they can do if additional tariffs are placed on this, and said that they may have to do things starting as early as next week to roll back some of the auto incentives that are offered to consumers right now, some of the deals to get them to come in and buy cars, that it would also hurt profit margins almost immediately, and they would have to do things to try and make up for those profit margins. I just wonder how much pain do you think we are willing to feel to get to the place that the president was laying out last night? Is it short-term pain, if that's in the form of higher prices and potential layoffs? Is that something you think is worth it to get to what the president has laid out?
Well, I'll say a couple things there. First of all, the president did say to us sitting there last night, you're going to have to be a little patient. So that, to me, signals some short-term pain. However, I will say a vehicle, a car, if you look at why the president was elected, it was food prices. It was just the most basic expenses in every family's life. And a car is one of those. And so I think to make it more affordable and to also keep our workforce as vibrant in this automotive sector as we want it to be and watch it grow, I think, there has to be some care given here. We did negotiate and we did pass under President Trump's past leadership the USMCA. And if there's compliance there, I think we have to be very careful that we're not breaking agreements that we made in the past. So as I said earlier, I think this is a negotiating tool. I think automobiles are essential in life here in this country, and we don't want to price our consumers, particularly at the lower end, out of the market, because that's joblessness and that's other strains on an already strained family budget.
I hear what you're saying. You're saying the same thing that a lot on Wall Street investors and business leaders have been thinking, too, that this is a negotiating tactic, that it really is to get us designed to a better deal. It's not necessarily higher tariffs that are here to stay. But we did have Bruce Heyman, the former U.S. ambassador to Canada, on with us earlier this morning. He's worried that this is going to be permanent, and that's because he thinks the administration needs money to pay for all of the extension of the tax cuts and the additional tax cuts that have been promised by the president, that they need money to do that. And that's why he thinks they started with the United States, Canada, Mexico, and China, because those are the three biggest trading partners. If this is a situation where this is permanent and you're going to see higher costs that come through, would you still be on board with that?
Well, I think we have to look at it in the whole, and I think we have to look at what the president's trying to do. I think he's trying to right the ship here in terms of where he sees an even playing field or a fairness quotient. These are obviously our friends in Mexico and in Canada, so I think it's important that we keep those alliances as strong as we possibly can in the global situation. So, you know, one thing we've learned with President Trump, you know, what can happen today can unhappen tomorrow. And some of that uncertainty, I think, plays to his strength to be able to negotiate and renegotiate. The automotive sector is very important. You saw what happened in this past election, talking about the EV mandate and how it was troublesome in Michigan and other areas where there was job loss. Ohio would be another good example. So I think what he said in his speech, have a little patience. He's not the most patient person, but he's asking us for a little patience. It's going to change a little bit today. It'll probably change a little bit tomorrow. What that does to the markets, only the market's going to be able to react to that. What it does to the American worker and the American consumer is where I think is the most important thing, and I think that's what the president has his eye on.
And, Senator, another thing the president has his eye on is balancing the budget, as he talked about last night. He also talked about adding more tax cuts to the extension of the 2017 tax provisions. How do you think they're going to pay for it? I guess Elon Musk expected to appear before House Republicans today. The savings at Doge are getting headlines, but don't add up to that much when you compare it to the $4 trillion that extending the tax cuts would take. Where do you see more potential for tax savings or the need to pay for the tax extensions and additional cuts?
I think we all recognize that what we have is a spending problem and not a revenue problem. We have a lot of revenues that have grown, and a lot of this was as a result of the 2017 tax relief that was passed under President Trump's past leadership. So we're going to be very strategic and look for those savings to bend the arc. We have way too much debt. We are headed in a direction that has been characterized as possibly catastrophic. We've got to prevent that. Now is the time to do it. So all of these things are in play. I don't think that personally, I don't think that the reason President Trump is moving forward on the tariff item is to pay for the tax relief. I don't think that's his motive. I think he sees the American worker as disadvantaged in certain circumstances, and the consumer, and that's what he's going for. So in the greater, we're looking now in the greater package that we're going to be putting together, where we can achieve these savings, what Doge is doing, what the federal workforce looks like in the next 6 to 9 months, and what the tax structures are. The president campaigned on no tax on tips. We've got to consider that as part of what he said to the American people he was going to try to achieve. That may mean that there's a push and pull in some of the other areas. We're going to look at the IRA and pull out some of those incentives. So, you know, we got a lot to look at here, and I think it's an exciting time because I think we're going to see big shifts.